Okay, there we go. Wednesday, September 8th. Congratulations to the class. I didn't see anybody who tried to join the class on Monday when it wasn't being held. So I'll take this announcement off of there. I have some logistical things I want to cover that I probably should have done earlier, but no time like the present. Let's go take a look in one of the early modules here on getting started, I believe. Yeah, here it is. I want to take a look under course expectations, and that follows a link here that I wanted to just go over. A couple of things we did go over, and a couple of things I want to go over now. Everybody should be aware, unless you're not taking this class for a grade or don't care about your grade, that this is the distribution of your grade. Therefore, final project needs a lot of attention because it's a single assignment. Projects need a lot of attention because there are only 3 of them. And assignments are kind of, you know, you can miss an assignment or 2 and still pass the class. You should all be up to date on the fact that our grading scheme changed a couple of semesters ago, and this is standard for Deltec. So there's no differences and no room here for modifications. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, which I just know will become an issue as we move into the class, is the late policy. Work is due as posted the end of the day on Sunday. Just saying that doesn't work. Things get late and they become later and later. So we have a department-wide late policy that says for a full class, which we are 15 weeks, we deduct 10% or 10 points, it really should say, 10 points from the grade each week for up to 3 weeks. In other words, up to 30 points off. So your excellent solution submitted on time will be worth 70% if it's 3 weeks late. I usually modify, well, I modify this a little bit, but I can't publish it because it's not standard policy. If you're only a day late, I take off 5 points instead of 10. So just beware that it's a bad thing for your grade, and almost more importantly, it's a bad way of taking the course. In general, people who fall behind on assignments are people who don't pass, because you're not only are you missing assignments, you're missing concepts. So just beware. And when I grade something that's late, in the comments, I will I'll put something that says, you know, deducted X points for being this amount late. Any questions on that? That should be straightforward. Okay, a word about the grade book, which I should have pointed out to you, that one of you pointed out to me, is that all the assignments in the grade book are loaded with zeros at the beginning of the course. And that means that your average at the beginning of the course is 0, which gives you an F. That was done deliberately to show you how your grade builds up based on your work submitted. It's also course policy, and I can't change it, and I don't particularly want to change it. So what you'll see as you get as you get assignments graded is you'll see that point count build up. And eventually, when it gets to 70, you'll get a C. If it gets to 80, you get a B. If it's over 90, you have an A. So that's the way that works. If we don't do it, excuse me, if we don't do it that way, then people are all happy because they've submitted 2 assignments. The first 2, they're easy. They have 100 on both. They have an A in the class, and they think the class is easy. So Even if I could, I don't think I would change this scheme of building things up. Just as a reminder, the two discussion topics, well, the first discussion topic is now closed. The second one on the algorithm is open till this Sunday. As part of the directions on that, they ask you for 2 replies to other posts. So make sure, if I haven't graded yours, that you've got 2 replies out there. Frankly, those 2 discussion things, I'm not going to beat up and make a big deal out of the grading. If they're there and there are 2 replies and it's written in some language I understand, you get 100 for it. That's not true as we get into the programs. I think that a part of my role in grading your programs is to make suggestions about how it could be better. Even if it's the point of giving you a 99 or 98 and sounding nitpicky, it's still, to me, an opportunity to, to make you a better programmer. So look for comments along those lines. And don't scream at me about, why did you give me a 98? I deserved 100. Well, it's no big deal. And once you have an A, you have an A. There's no A plus. Now, in the last go around, several assignments have been given extra credit things. So that would give you over 100 if you choose to do the extra credit. And in some cases, it's part of, up to 10 points. In some cases, you have to do this and either get extra 10 points or nothing. But we'll get to those. Actually, we'll get to those today, I think. Okay, let's take a look forward here. I think I got to go back to the beginning over here. Okay. It's always a good idea. And of course, there's a significant effort to maintain the calendar so that it's accurate, to keep track of where we are and where we're going. So the end of this coming Sunday is the end of the algorithm review discussion. It will just close at the end of the day. And then it looks like it's free time, right? We have until September 26th to do the toll booth control form assignment. And this is not the first GUI 0 version of this assignment. It's a revised version. So if you've seen it in earlier classes, this one is different. And before you decide it's vacation time for homework, this will be the first substantial GUI 0 program that you've written, and you're going to have a lot to learn to work on it, even more so if you decide to do the extra credit. So we'll be looking at that in a little bit. And in general, any kind of project work, class work, there's 2 approaches. And professionally in scheduling, they're called front-ended or back-ended. So in a front-ended approach to a project, when I have it, I start working on it. And if I'm done early, I'm done early. The back-end approach is calculate from when it's due, estimate how much time it's going to take, and wait to start it until your estimated start time. Particularly in a first class, particularly in a programming class, that back-ended thing pretty much is doomed to failure because you don't know how long it's going to take. You don't know how long it's going to take to find the problems. So I'm going to strongly recommend front-end scheduling of your assignments. So you know what's due on September 26th. We should be able to take a look at it today. And one of the things that I'd like you to do when you get a new assignment is either make a list on paper or think in your head, what do I need to know before I can do this assignment? If I'm going to build a project and go to Home Depot, I probably want to know what is it that I need at Home Depot to be successful. Now, as you know, if you've done that, sometimes you're wrong and you have to go back to Home Depot either for something else or to exchange something. But that's another advertisement for front-end loading. You start early and then you have more time to work through those things. Okay, so starting here, we're going to start with assignments and projects. So this means submitting code, typically code, that you've developed in PyCharm. We can talk a little more about how to do that, but all of these should have the word, well, most of them have the word GUI 0 in them, as opposed to the regular flow through this class where you don't start doing GUI 0 assignments till the end. And to me, that seems backwards. So starting today, we're going to focus on the GUI 0 library. We started that last time. I'll review that with you. And really just start to build up the list of tools that we have in our tool belt for what we can use. And you just must remember that this is sort of the Bible about GUI 0. And I would create a link to this. And particularly if you look under widgets, these are the widgets, not all of them. Well, I would say there's not that many of these that you can't cover all of them. If we don't cover them in class, you can cover them on your own. This down here has other things important about GUI 0 that don't come under the category, directly under the category of widgets. So this is your Bible. You're much better off looking up this website than asking me, because these are the people who wrote GUI 0. So, so they know. Just as a review, there's a book here that you can get as a free PDF that has 10 projects in it. Now, there may be some style differences in what they do than what I do, but it's there and it's certainly worth reading. Okay. So on our schedule, it says we should be doing module 2. So let's take a look at module 2 and see what's here and see how much we can kind of ignore it and do our own thing. So module 2, which is still kind of an well, it says introductory. It's trying to introduce you to the topic of modules. This has a lot to do with import statements. And it's a little confusing, but we're going to, learn by example. We're going to look at these by example. For those of you who have seen or at least have written, for those of you who have written or at least seen the statement from GUI 0 import asterisk, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about making modules or packages not normally available in PyCharm available to you. It's interesting, somewhat important, a little out of the scope of this class, to know that you can make your own modules, and it's really easy. So we'll do that. Typecasting, we're going to look at in a different way. Input is really the text console-based way. We'll look at it from a GUI 0 perspective. And then there's 2 practice programs. Well, what's the good news about practice programs? The good news is that they define something here that frequently is a lead into the assignment, except we're not doing the assignment in here if there is one. And also has a video, either by Chuck or myself, and also has a solution, either by Chuck or myself. So these are worked out, they work. We're going to do a GUI 0 version of this, so it'll look a little different. The concepts are very similar. So these practice exercises are really there just as it says. They're there as a practice for what's to come. And this has a kilograms to pounds and a feet to miles or something like that. Inches and feet, inches to feet and inches conversion. This one's a little more complicated, but that's okay. So don't ignore the practices. A lot of time and effort go into making those up, recording the videos. We're required in those videos to make the closed captions intelligible, which they aren't always done automatically in such a way to make them intelligible. And I know for a fact that I don't speak intelligibly always on my videos. So frequently my closed captions are more coherent than my direct speaking. This is not the next assignment due. This assignment isn't due until October 3rd, and it's not a text-based assignment. It's a GUI 0 assignment because that's our focus. So don't be in a rush just because it's module 2 to start looking at this. While we're here, let's take a look at the next assignment, just because this is a good time to do it before we start working in PyCharm. So this is the next assignment due. Does everybody know what it looks like to approach a toll plaza on I-95? Anybody not know that experience? Okay, so when you approach a toll plaza, there are lane numbers and there are indicators about whether the lane is open or closed, and now there's also indicators about whether it's easy pass or not. So that's basically what we're going for. I think I could convince you that there's not a man at the top, or a woman, worker at the top of the place where the signs are hanging to change them from open to closed. Let's just go simply about it. That's being done remotely. And that's what this assignment is about. So let's take a look. And this would be a good chance to ask questions if you have questions. The signs look something like this. And I guess I noticed two things about them. They're big and they're simple. So the only thing that you're going to see on these signs in our example is either a red X, a large red X, or an equally large green O. And of course, X is for closed and green is for open. And that's what this says. This goes blah, 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 blah. And you will read this for yourself. So the basic version of this is split into two different windows. All right, now there's your checklist of what do you have to learn. You have to learn how to create two windows and tie them together. So we're going to do that hopefully today in an example. This is the outdoor window because it has a bigger X and it has nothing else in it. And this is the control panel window. It has a small X because the person's sitting right in front of it. And in this case, it has a checkbox. All right. Well, that's something else you have to learn about. Today, we're going to talk about push buttons. The checkboxes are a little different. Where do you learn about them? In the GUI 0 tutorial. So the idea is when you check the checkbox, this turns to a green O and this turns to a green O. So these two widgets are two different widgets. They must have different names, but they reflect the same thing. They always go together. All right, having said that, my question will always be, does the assignment make sense? Not do you know how to do it, but does the assignment make sense? Do you understand what it is that I'm asking you to do? And this is a great time to say no. So
on the left X, I mean the small X, I mean
Yep.
the one on the top, the bottom right is called the window, the outdoor window, and then what's the one on the left?
Oh,
top?
well, my title here says control panel.
Oh, it's just what it says, I think.
Yeah, so this is where a person is sitting, overseeing what's going on. You probably with a camera. overseeing what's going on and opening and closing lanes. Okay.
Yeah, what do you mean by creating two windows opening? You mean on the desktop, you're gonna have two windows like the way it is on the photos?
Yes, yeah, this is nothing other than a rectangular screenshot. So we're going to learn today how in GUI 0, you create two windows. And it's not as obvious as you think, but nor is it difficult. And it's discussed in great detail in the GUI 0 tutorial. And of course, what we're going to find out is if you have more than one window, then you're going to have to be careful where your widgets are placed. They have to be placed someplace. And in this case, they will be placed either here or here, not both. As I say, these are two separate widgets. They just happen to have the same value. Other questions? Are we having fun yet? Maybe.
I'm having fun.
Good. This is a pretty simple assignment. I looked at my solution before and it was either like 35, 45 lines long, including blank lines, including a header. So not that hard. All right, for the brave people or the people who need more of an adventure, this is ridiculously silly, simplified. There's more than one lane at almost any toll plaza. Certainly on 95, there's always more than one lane. So what we really should be looking at is we should be looking at a control panel that has multiple lanes, which means that each lane has its own checkbox. And there's another checkbox over here that can either open all the lanes or close all the lanes with one click. So when the bridge gets washed out, somebody comes in here and just closes all the lanes really quickly and everything turns to a red X. That's the control panel. The outside sign needs to have markers as to what lane it is. They don't change. And they're just as big as the indicators. And underneath each lane marker is the open closed status of that lane. There's a remark over here that says, where is the remark? I'm not seeing it. Oh, well, it's kind of here. As part of the extra credit, I strongly recommend that you look into how to create a list of widgets. Now, I'm not sure if that's covered in the tutorial, and I'm perfectly happy to talk to anybody about it up front for this assignment. We'll talk more about it later. But ultimately, when you have 5 of the same thing, handling them as 5 separate widgets is just really clunky and is going to make your code long and hard to maintain. So you can take these widgets, for instance, and put the widgets into a list and then go down the list sequentially. And that's beyond the scope of what we're going to do for a while. So that's why it's extra credit. And you can read through these to see what else it is that you're expected to know after you've done this. And here probably Chuck talked about, read the documentation. The old acronym for that was RTFM, which, just to be correct, I can't quote, but basically it's read the manual. Okay. So in essence, the extra credit is this times 5. But you really don't want to be doing it 5 times over. You want to create a concept where you do it once and you replicate it 5 times. And that's why we suggest a list. All right, the other thing, which we spared no, spare no expense, I guess that's the thing. These things typically come along with a video. And this one is starring yours truly. It's a pretty short video, and it shows you this in action. So if you didn't get it from reading it, you should be able to at least get the idea of what we're trying to do by watching the video. And this shows both versions, the basic version and the extra credit version. Okay, now I'm in student view, so this is exactly what you'll see. The only thing I need you to submit when you are ready to submit this is the PY file with your code in it. And you can, from PyCharm, it's very easy to get to a file explorer view where you'll see your thing just like in any other, Explorer window. And you could either upload by navigating or drag and drop your PY file. So I don't need the whole project in this case. In most cases, all I need is the PY file with your solution. All righty, how are we doing?
So about the Py file, is that the code that like originally is on my is on the PyCharm?
Well, that's where you have, when you tell PyCharm you want to create a new Python file,
Yes.
it takes the name that you give it, it appends .py to it, and it opens it up in the editor. It's that file that you need to submit, because that's where your work is.
Okay, thank you.
So what I do is I cut and paste that into a grading version in my PyCharm, and then run it just to see what it does. All right, any other questions?
Yes.
Sure.
I think I have to take you a little bit back. I'm a little bit confused here. This assignment is due sometime, not now, right?
The assignment is due whenever it says, does it say over here?
So what I'm saying that
26 September.
Yeah, down here, due September 26th, which is
Okay.
a Sunday at
yeah,
midnight.
because a lot of the stuff you're describing here, we have not done. I have not done them yet. I mean,
And
we have
that's
done-
true. That's probably true
Yeah.
of just about everybody.
Yeah, so it making me a little bit confused about how I will be able to understand exactly what you're saying until I see like some of the example of GUI project or GUI example, GUI
Yep.
0 examples and all
Yep.
that stuff.
Well,
All right.
a couple of things. One is that's pretty much what we're going to do for the rest of the class today.
Mhm.
We will be doing more of that before September 26th. We'll be doing more of that after September 26th. But in terms of what it does, there's a video that shows what it does. So this is deliberately, what would I call it? A get your feet wet kind of assignment. You're kind of jumping into this. And that's why I strongly recommended the GUI 0 tutorial, because it will tell you how to make 2 windows. It'll tell you how to make a text widget, how to change its size, and it will tell you how to make a checkbox and how it would work. I think the checkbox is the easiest thing. If you want to do it with a push button or 2 push buttons, you can. But we haven't done that yet. We'll do some of it today, but you're expected to, spend time with the GUI 0 tutorial and PyCharm and make sure that you can get it to work. Will it work the first time? No. Will it work if you persist at it? I hope so. I think so. As I said, something like 35, 45 lines, including comments and blank lines. Not a big program. And, in my experience, personally, when I got paid to write programs, frequently I had very little understanding of how to do the job when I started. That understanding came from working at it and from my unwillingness to go back to my manager and say, I can't do it. I always thought that was a really bad approach. So, if you learn how to figure these things out on your own, you're setting yourself up for a good future in these kinds of exercises where you don't know at the beginning. And that's why I said, you could do a lot worse when you see an assignment like this. Just make a list on pencil and paper. Here's the things I need to know. I need to learn. I need to learn how to make two windows. I need to know how to have a text widget of different sizes and different colors. I need to know how a checkbox works. All right, that's the purpose of the assignment. My other comment is that I've not hidden the answer to this assignment anywhere. This is not something that's been worked out and is on the internet. It's not something whose solution is buried someplace in D2L. Those are the practice exercises. We're giving you the solutions to those. These are not those. These are an extension of those. So don't look for the answer. Look to learn how to use the tools that you know that you're going to need to learn. All right. Any other questions? All right. Feel free. I mean, if a question comes up, either interrupt or, we get a break. I see there are two chat things. Okay. I don't know. Okay. Not my issue. Now it's time to look at pie chart. And that's what we're going to do probably for the rest of this session. Of course, including our 10 or 15-minute break. So what I've done is I started a new folder over here with today's date, and I'm going to work through these things with a little help from my notes. I'm going to work through these things to build up something from a starter. And we talked about this starter last time, but it's certainly worth going over it again. This starter does just about nothing other than putting up a window. But if everything we're going to do has to do with GUI 0, you need to know how to do this. So this isn't the only way, and we'll talk more about this, but somehow or other, we have to make the GUI 0 library available to our program. And this is one way of doing it. From GUI 0, import asterisk. That means everything. Following that, in triple single quotes, I have a multi-line comment, which is really just a multi-line string with the name of the course, the name of the program, what it is, my name, a date, and anything else that would be helpful to somebody who just wants to look at the top of this program and know what it's about. And if something here looks weird to you, holler out anytime. Because everything should be in a nice place, we're going to take this, excuse me, we're going to take the style of starting our program in a main function. And the purpose of the main function is to hold the top level of our code. So as we get more detailed, we're going to create other functions. But starting from the top, that's what the main function is. I know it's a function for three reasons. It uses the keyword def, which stands for define. It has a name, typically in lowercase. It has parentheses that may or may not have anything in them, and it ends in a colon. Anything that ends in a colon, including functions, are an indication that they're a container. It's the opening of a container for lines of code. What lines of code? The lines of code, they're indented under that first line. So I need a window. I need at least one window or else GUI 0 isn't happening. And that window must be built using the capital APP class. If I hover over it, PyCharm will give me more information about that class. How do I know it's a class? Because it starts with a capital letter. What does a class do? Well, it's code that builds objects. What could I put in the parentheses? I could put a title, a width, a height, a layout, a background color, and I can make it visible or invisible. And a little more explanation down here of those things. So what is this equal sign doing here? Somebody give me a good explanation of that equal sign. What does it mean? What does it do? How do I evaluate it?
So it's creating a new app object and assigning it to the lowercase app variable.
Yeah, it's not a statement of equality. It's not a test of equality. It's an assignment. And it assigns whatever this does, whatever the right side of the equal sign does, it assigns it to the thing, and I'm being vague, the thing on the left of the equal sign. Well, what does APP do? Capital APP, it builds APP windows, and the window that it builds is assigned to this, which we could call a variable, but it's more appropriately called an object. Variables and objects and function names are supposed to be written all in lowercase. So now that I have an APP object, the only thing I did here is display it. If I don't display it, you won't see it. All right, next critical step.
Question, please.
Sure.
Def main with parentheses and column, right?
Yeah.
And then app dot display with no, app assigned to app with no columns. What's
Right.
the difference?
Colons are an indication that I'm opening up a container for lines of code. For better or worse, there are three kinds of containers. There are containers for code, there are containers for widgets, and there are containers for data. So colon says I'm opening up a container to hold literally one or more line of code. A container can't have 0 lines of code in it, you'll get an error. So line 12 opens a container as a function and indents everything that is in that function.
Why is it labeled main? You can't give any other name to it. Like
Say
def
again,
main.
what does what mean?
Def main, right? Why
Def-
is main?
Oh, main
main.
is the name of the container, which in this case, no, that's not said right. Main is the name of the function.
So you cannot give it other name. It's
You
just have to
can.
be.
Yep, you absolutely can. As a matter of fact, when PyCharm builds a demo program, that's what it does. So maybe I should illustrate that. Well, let me finish this and then I'll illustrate it.
Okay.
Now, just because you define a function, that doesn't mean you execute the function. So unlike a novel, we don't read chapter 1 and then go on to chapter 2. We define a function, and at some point, we need to execute the function. If not, why did we define it? So that actually happens down here. And you can see the color clues match up. So after we've defined the function, we then have a very mysterious looking line. And the one thing we know about it, it is ends in a colon. So that means we're opening up a container for one or more lines of code. The only line of code in that container happens to be executing the main function. And now we have 2 equal signs. Well, if 1 equal sign is good, then 2 equal signs is better. No, that's not true. 2 equal signs means, are the things on the left and right of the equal sign identical? Well, this is just a string. You can tell it's a string because it's surrounded in quotes. This is sort of kind of a variable, but it's a magic variable because of the leading and trailing underscores. and it really doesn't pay to talk about that yet. This is something that PyCharm will do for you automatically. The biggest advantage of it, it gives you a little green arrow to run the program. As opposed to here, notice I hit this green arrow, I'm running an old program, not this program. Once I hit this green arrow, I run this program. The execution of it does this. It creates a gray window with a title of GUI 0, and this window is 500 by 500 pixels. It's worth noting that the program is still running. There's no message here that says the program is stopped. When I hit the X, there is a message down here that it's stopped. Okay, does this have to be called main? And the answer is no, but why not? So if I call this Eric, it has an error over here. I can't find something to run. So I put Eric over here, and I still have a green check mark, and I run the program and it runs just fine. So no, main is not a sacred word, but why not follow the conventions and call your main function main?
Excuse me, can I mean, before you get to the def main, I mean, is it just a typical GUI 0? I mean,
I don't understand the question.
I mean, before you get to line 12 where you get,
Yeah.
I mean, is it, then you, what about the stuff that comes before it, like the green? So
Okay, the green is green because it's sitting within 3 single quotes. So anything that sits between a starting 3 quotes and the next 3 quotes is just comments. I
okay.
could write my life story here. I could write nothing here. I could write it in French. These are just comments, and that's why it's in green.
So it actually starts at 12, that's where.
Well, line 1 is not executed, but it makes the
Oh.
GUI 0 library available.
Okay, thank you. So the first step is GUI 0, then it's the def main.
Well, the first step is importing the first step is importing everything from the GUI 0 library.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And then 12.
All right, are we good with this? All right. So part of what they say in module 2 is there are several ways of doing the same thing, this import. And let me find my note and let's look at them. Now, if I don't want this line to be involved in my program, I can just put a £sign in front of it. And now it becomes a single line comment. When I do that, I get an error over here because it doesn't know what APP is. So I have to substitute something intelligent from that. And I can do it this way. From GUI 0, you got to spell it right, or double click on it, import APP. So I can import a comma separated list of every widget that I'm using in my program, and that will make this happy and it'll work the same way. I kind of think it's a pain to do that, so I just like to say import everything. All right. We can also say import GUI 0. Nothing wrong with that. But this doesn't know where to get this from, because it has this library and it doesn't know to get it from there. So that's what I do. Then I should have to do this. GUI 0 dot APP. And this then becomes, I don't know what the right word is, kind of like a fully qualified explanation of where APP comes from. So I have the GUI 0 library, and I need the APP class that's in that library.
First one simplifies it, to be honest.
Sure it does, but let me tell you why you might do this. We don't have to, but I'll tell you the justification for it. Let's say that you have 2 different packages that have an APP class in them. and you're importing both, how do you know which one it's going to grab? So the idea that this is fully qualified makes sure that it grabs the APP class out of the GUI 0 library. That's kind of the justification. Again, I do line 1, but if you see these and you see this, you know what's going on.
Does Quizero.app still work if you have from import Quizero, or does it only work if you have import Quizero?
I think it does. I think it doesn't work. Yep, it doesn't work.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So, for your main function, you did it at, you created the app window, but you also displayed it. And I'm
Yes.
confused. I thought if you create it, it's just going to display by itself. Do you have to act like, I guess I'm confused on display function.
Okay, so so let's go back here. We have to have one of these. Wait. We have to have one of these. So I'm going to do what you suggest. I'm just going to comment this out and run the program. And you have to look really quickly. If you had really good eyes, that window appeared and disappeared and the program finished. So yes, it created the window, but there was nothing to hold the window open. So display is kind of not, it is more than display. app.display holds the window open and also sets up the window to be able to respond to events, which we haven't talked about yet.
Thank you.
So yeah, app display is not optional. The other thing to note is that nothing happens below that. Goodbye is only one word, okay. Nothing happens below line 18. I'm sorry, below line 19 until the program ends. So my program is running, my program is running, my program is closed. Now it says goodbye. So underneath this, you can't have anything having to do with GUI 0. You can have other code that doesn't have anything to do with GUI 0. For instance, maybe you want to store some data away when your program closes. You can underneath line 19, just not anything having to do with GUI 0.
So because it would stop at the first display call, if you were having two windows like in the assignment, would you initialize them both and only display one of them?
That's correct, but we also have to discuss the window class and how it differs from the APP class. It's
Okay.
basically going to form a hierarchy or a parent-child relationship. And not to be morbid about it, but if the parent dies, all the children die. If a child dies, the parent still exists. Not only that, the children window inherits certain properties from the parent window. So there's your object-oriented explanation. All right, one more. And this stuff we're doing here with these imports is the module 2 material. Import. Now I've decided that I don't want to keep typing GUI 0 because it's too much typing. So I can give it an alias like GZ. And from then on out, I don't refer to it as GUI 0. I refer to it as GZ. And everything's hotsy-totsy. So 4 different kinds of imports. From GUI 0, import everything. From GUI 0, import a comma-separated list of widgets or classes. Import GUI 0 and fully qualify it. Import GUI 0 and give it an alias. So all of those work. The most correct way are the last 2, but we usually don't use it because that makes sure that you know where your stuff is coming from. Okay, there we go. Now, the question is, why were we here? We were here for a good reason. And I'm thinking about whether or not we should take a break before we get into it. And the answer is yes. That's the answer. So you can use this program as a template for starting GUI 0 programs. You know, it doesn't do anything but create a window, but it is formatted in a nice way. It uses some nice Python conventions. You have a little green arrow over here. It's all good. And you have your multi-line comment, which we'll call a header over here. So this is not a bad starting program, and there's nothing special about it. I don't think in the GUI 0 tutorial they make a point out of defining a main function, but it's good style. You don't have to. You can define this without defining a main function, and it's okay, but I think this is a lot better style. And there's some other things that we're going to get into after the break to make that point. All right. Questions? All right. So let's call it 9:35 to get back.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I didn't understand about the algorithm assignment. I really did not.
Okay. So why don't we talk about that?
We do at the class.
Yeah, I was going to say that was going to be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Unless anyone else wants to shout out that, yeah, let's do it after class.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
right.
Thank you.
So don't anybody log out. I will. We were here and this is a starter. So now we have to get down to business. And if I want to use this as a starter, not a bad idea just to take it and copy it. So I'm going to right click on it and say copy. I'm going to put it in the folder where I'm doing my work for today and say paste. Now we're just going to bump this to be demo 2. And I'm going to get rid of this in my demo 2. And this is going to convert kilograms to pounds. And this then follows the practice in module 2, but that does it in a text-based way. We're going to do it in a GUI 0 based way. So if you don't like looking at an empty window in GUI 0, you need to put some stuff into it. So we're going to put widgets in the window. And remember, anything with a pound sign is a comment. So the first widget I'm going to put into the window is going to tell people what they're supposed to do. So it's just a text widget. And PyCharm will say, well, I found something with a capital T in GUI 0. Do you want that? Sure. I can hover over this widget and see all the different things I can do with a text widget. There's one thing that I must do. I must put this widget someplace. And the only place to put this widget is in APP. The rest of the things are optional. If it's a text widget, I probably want to set the text to something. And that will be convert KG to LB. Come down here, use my handy dandy green arrow. And now I have a window that's got a text widget in it. That's about all I have, but that's okay. I may decide that this font is a little small and I want everything to have the same font. So I'm going to do this, app.text size. And where am I getting these things from? I'm getting them from the GUI 0 tutorial. Now, if somebody is going to convert kilograms to pounds, they need to enter the kilograms. And the way to do that is with a text box. And all of these widgets after APP need to be told where they go. So there's only one place to put them. They're in APP. And I think that's all I need. Run the program, and now I have a text box. Okay, so far, so good. I could probably make this program a little better by giving it a title of convert. So I can come up here and say title equals convert kg to lb, and then change this to say enter kg below. Okay, that's better. Now, the next problem here is that I don't know when the person's finished typing. So I'm not going to take any action until they hit a push button. So I'm going to create a push button. Where in APP? What am I going to put into the push button? I'm just going to put the string convert. And how am I doing with warnings? Just an extra line there. Okay. Now, I've got some text telling you what to do, a place to type, and a button that says convert. When I hit the button, nothing happens. Well, that's not quite true. We do see the button visually appearing to be pressed. So notice there's a visual clue that you get because it is a push button. And that's provided by GUI 0. Well, not so interesting. I could push that button all day and nothing happens. So what I need is something that has a couple of fancy sounding names in it. The one that first comes to mind is I need an event handler. The event handler is the name of a function to run when the event happens. Well, what's the event that's going to happen? It's going to be that I push the push button. So again, straight out of the GUI 0 tutorial, it's command equals, and now I need the name of a function. Well, why don't I call the function convert? And it says, I don't know what you're talking about. And it suggests importing it. Well, there's nothing to import. I need that function to do something very special. And I haven't written it. So now comes the exciting part.
No,
Go ahead.
I was laughing. I get
Oh.
it. I can hear the sarcasm in your voice, Mr. Eric.
Well, no, it is the exciting part. It's all exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to define a function called convert. How do I do that? DEF, the name of the function, empty parentheses, and a colon. And it says there's nothing in your function. That's what this error is about. The function is empty. And we know that in functions, we have to indent our code. If you want to write your function later and you don't want to see an error, there's a nice keyword called pass, and pass does nothing, but it satisfies the requirement that a function has at least one line of code in it. So now this over here matches to that over there. This is a big mistake. If you put parentheses in here, it runs the function when line 23 executes.
I think that's where in my last class, my last programming class, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm screaming,
No,
but I think in my last class, that's where I kept messing up at.
Yep.
I put like
It'll-
15 punctuations. It
it'll
kept
just
saying
ruin
error.
it'll ruin your day. So this means run the function when line 23 executes. This means register the function as the event handler for a push button event. Now, no one's asked me why this function is indented in that function. And that's because in GUI 0 programs, it just makes your life easier. It's not the only way to do it, but it does make your life easier. So you may not believe me. You know, how do we know that this happened? Well, you can always throw a print statement in there. And I'm monitoring my upper right-hand corner here for a green check mark. It's all still good. Now, when I hit convert down here, it says button clicked. And it will say that every time I hit convert. So I know that this command equals is working and this function is working because it's printing button clicked. Now, there's two things wrong with that. One is that it appears down here, which is not part of your GUI. And the other is printing button click just doesn't get the job done. The job is to convert kilograms to pounds. So now I have some more issues, not the least of which is where am I going to show the conversion? I don't have a widget to show the conversion. I've got a text widget, which is just a header, text box, and a push button widget. So what do I need is I need another text widget. And it goes in APP, and there's no text in that widget until I have an answer. But it's more, there's a bigger problem than that, or another big problem. I can't put something in this text widget unless it has a name. If it doesn't have a name, it's called an anonymous widget. And that's fine as long as you don't need to refer to it in some other part of your program. So this widget, which is going to hold the answer, needs a name. Now we could choose Eric, we could choose Charlie, we could choose Thang, but we can do better than that. We can give it a name that tells us a lot. And this is my suggestion. I think you'll see the style in other places, but I can't promise that. You will see the style in other languages in their GUI environment. My suggestion is the name starts with 3 letters describing the widget, TXT, it's a text widget. Then another underscore, and then something that says, what are you using it for? I'm using it to display pounds. And now I've assigned the text widget a name. Well, this isn't new news. That's exactly what I did up here. I assigned the APP widget a name and then used it. So now that I have a name for the text widget, that's a step in the right direction. The next step is I need to read the information out of the text box. When the person hits the push button, but it needs a name. So TXT for text, that means TBX for text box, and it has kilograms in it. So now I have 2 named widgets and 1 anonymous widget. And if I never change anything about the push button, I don't need to name it. The push button does what it does because of the command equals over here. All right, so this was just a placeholder. So we'll take this out. And what do I want to do? Well, let's do it in 2 steps. I want to calculate pounds as something equal to the kilograms. So that's TBX. And now when I start typing that, it comes up in the list. And that's my logic for starting with the type of widget. all my TBXs will come up over here, and I can just double click on the right one. And it turns out that pounds equals kilograms times 2.205. The D2L notes take this to a gazillion decimal places, and that's a stupid idea. There is no weight accurate to that number of places. Okay, so PyCharm says something's not right. And I can hover here, or I can click here and get the same information about what's not right. And it says, I expected a float, but I got a text box. Okay. This is kind of critically important. This is the name of the widget. And that the name of the widget can't be multiplied by 2.2. So what I really wanted is I really wanted the value of the widget. And this P over here, if you can see, it stands for property. So one of the properties of a text box widget is the value. And now we have the value of the widget. So what do I want to do with the pounds? I want to do txt pound, and I want to change its value to the variable pound. And now everything is good. I've got a green check mark over here, and I've used everything that I've defined here. So here we go. And it helps to put in something that you know the answer to. So we're going to convert this, and hopefully, yes, we had an issue. And what you should do now is assume that between PyCharm and Python, that they understand more about this problem than you do, and they're trying to help you. These things are free. Well, what you see here in that kind of off reddish color is called an exception. And that's the first thing it said, exception and tkinter callback. Well, who's tkinter? tkinter is the library that sits underneath GUI 0, and GUI 0 is protecting you from all of the complexities of tkinter. Callback is another name for event handler. Going to the bottom, it says you had a type error. You can't multiply a sequence by a non-integer of type float. So, and then if you back up one, it says this failed in line 14, and that was what is on line 14. So this line went bad. And if you're going to multiply, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Melman. Does that mean you have to do all these lines all over again, or does that mean you just have to go back to those specific lines and?
Oh, I got to fix the problem, which may or may not mean fixing just this line, but it sure means fixing something.
Oh man!
And I'm gonna, well, you know, that's why as a programmer you get paid the big bucks to figure these things out. And
Yeah,
that's not exactly sarcastic. It's true. But what we need is we need a clue as to what went wrong. And actually, in this case, well, we know it was line 14. So let's try something. If we hover, oh, well, we know that this is a float because it has a decimal. If we hover over this, we see some indication that what we're dealing with here is a string like Eric. And you can't multiply by 2.205. Turns out you can multiply the string by 2 and create another copy of it, but that's not where we're going. So going back to your GUI 0 tutorial, what you'll learn is that when you read a text, read the value out of a text box, what you have is a string. Regardless of what it looks like, it's a string. So here in this case, the string was 1, but it wasn't the number 1, and it wasn't the floating point value 1.3. It was a string. So back to module 2, it tells you that this value has to be transformed from a string to a float. And the way to do that is Python has a built-in function called float. And if we float the value first, then multiply, then display the value, life should be good. So we'll start with 1. And now here's the conversion. 1.45. And there's the conversion. Notice it's not doing anything about the number of decimals. And that later on is perhaps something we want to change. Okay. So we had that ugly looking thing in red, complaining about stuff that we only sort of half understood, and we figured out how to fix it. Now, we could have figured that out by reading the GUI 0 tutorial, which would tell us that text box values are always a string. Or if we hovered over here, this probably, oh no, I'm sorry. If we hover over here, it doesn't look like this tells us that. Yeah, but we have every indication that that's the case. All right. So what have we done? We've put some widgets in the window. Every widget that we put in, we identified as going in APP because there's no other place to put them. Everything's being defaulted to an 18-point font. Two of these widgets are anonymous because they'll never be changed. 2 of them are named. This one is the source of the data. This is where we display the results. So, comments, confusions? I give up. You're
Do you,
giving me a headache.
I was trying to say it. Do you have to put, you see where the line is right here, the put widgets in the windows? Do you have to put that up there?
No. You do if you need to satisfy the grading rubric. The
Okay.
grading rubric is going to ask about, is your code commented and do you have a header? Does PyCharm care? No. Does Python care? No. Do I care? Yes, because this is documentation and this is documentation. And when your program gets to be 100 lines long, or if somebody
100 lines?
well, that's still a small program. Trust me.
What's the most you've seen?
Well, I guess, how about, can I answer the question the most I've heard about?
Sure.
And I don't remember the number exactly. So several years ago, when Obamacare went live, they paid a lot of money to put up the website to handle people registering. And it was a disaster. And I think the story was that to support the website was something like 50 or 75 million lines of code. And it didn't work. It worked fine as long as a few people were using it, but once you opened up to the country, it didn't work.
Game over.
Well,
Question.
yeah, but you can't give up. So what they did is they brought in a new team of experts, which of course they should have had in the first place. The experts looked at the code and said it has to be redone. And when they redid it, I think they ended up with something like 10, 15 million lines, but it worked. So yeah, Microsoft Windows has a few million lines of code in it.
Question, please.
Yes, sir.
This format, to convert from pound to do the conversion, is this like a fixed way of converting, or you have another ways to convert from pound to kilo or any kind of conversion?
So not within Python. There may be libraries that have it in it, but not that I know of.
So
But the
this
purpose-
is the standard way of converting, right?
Well, this is the pure Python way of converting.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So if I just, let me say, if I memorize these steps, I can do it for any other ones, right? That's what you,
Well,
I'm
have
trying
you ever heard of Google?
yeah, I had about Google.
Okay, so there I'm being sarcastic. You can look up any conversion factor you want in Google, and it'll give you the value.
No, I don't want to get myself mixed up. I just want to see how best I can understand this well.
Well, this says if you take the value in kilograms as a floating point number and multiply by 2.205, you'll get a good enough answer in pounds.
Okay.
I mean, that's how you convert kilograms to pounds, by multiplying by 2.204, blah, 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 blah. Just call it 2.205. And of course, we can answer the same question about Fahrenheit and Celsius, centigrade.
That's what exactly I want to ask. Now, if you want to do like Fahrenheit to centigrade, where you have the pound convert, you can use that as Fahrenheit convert to something.
Oh, sure.
I just want to
but-
see if you can use the same format for any kind of conversion. You might
Well,
just need to change the symbol. Where you
so
have kilograms, you change it to
Well, these
something different.
conversions tend to be simple math, and they tend to be linear equations. So, yeah, multiply by 5/9 and add 32, or vice versa. You have to look them up unless you know it, and then you express it here. And of course, yeah, you change, if this is Fahrenheit, you put it in the right equation, and then you say Celsius equals Fahrenheit times this divided by that, or whatever it is.
All right.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
Do you need the variable pounds, or can you delete that and just set it equal to the float? Like,
Yeah,
could you do TX?
That's a good question. And the answer is yes. Notice
Okay.
there's a variable here that is used no place else other than in line 15. And if that's the case, and you don't mind reading it the other way, you can do this. You take this out of here, you put it into here, and you get rid of this. So the answer is definitely you don't need to have two lines there. Remember what this is. It's an assignment. Take everything on the right, reduce it as much as you can, and plug it into the thing on the left. So yeah. Remember when you're working on the right side of the equals. Now this one I usually have a good hit rate on. How many people know about my dear Aunt Sally? Hello. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
The order of operations.
Yeah, it's order of operations, and that applies to every language. So this says I must evaluate in here first, then I do the float, then I do the times. And if there was pluses and minuses, I would do that after. So everything that you're evaluating has to follow PEMDAS to get the order right. And if you don't like the order, use parentheses to change it. Okay. Now this is a big step forward from where we were at the beginning of the day. All we could do at the beginning of the day is create an app window and show it. Now we have learned about three kinds of widgets: text widgets, which can either be fixed text or output of text; text boxes, where we can type things; and push buttons that not only have text, but also can be associated with event handlers, which are always named without the parentheses so that it knows it's registering the function as an event handler. Otherwise called a callback, just the same, another word for it.
So don't you need like a push button in order for the convert to work?
No, you can, there are other ways of doing it. You can set up a handler on the text box so that as you enter each digit, it converted it, but that's kind of a little stupid.
I mean, like I'm on line 4 and I just did after def main and I did def convert and then it tells me an error at the bottom. It says local function convert is not used.
So did you define convert inside of main?
Oh, let me see. I did def main and then I did the parentheses and then the equal sign and I did yes.
All right, so we'll have to look at that separately and see what's going on there. I got a hand from Carl. Thank you, Carl. What's up?
So say we don't enter anything into the text box and then hit convert. Is that gonna like return some kind of error that needs to be resolved? Or
Boy, is that a good question and a great idea. So when we write a program, we want to test it every which way. And what we want to do is we want to find the problems before whoever we're providing the program to finds the problems. So one of the things is leave it empty and hit the button. And bingo, it says down here, could not convert string to float, and the string it found was an empty string. And again, it failed on line 14. So if float fails, we will get a value error and we will have to deal with it, but that's beyond the scope of what we're ready to deal with today. Now, also we noticed when that happened, this number is still here, which looks stupid. So probably what we should be doing is when we hit the button, we should be wiping that number out. And that's pretty easy. That would be the text field txt pounds, and we can just do a dot clear and wipe it out. So good news, bad news, but at least the field is cleared. Now there's more news here. What about this? You see, I wish we were in class where we get thumbs up, thumbs down. Is this good news or bad news?
Bad news,
Why?
because you can't, there is no negative kilogram.
Right.
What if you have a helium balloon?
That doesn't mean it has no weight. That means that it's lighter than air. It has, so kilogram is a measure of mass. So you can't have negative mass, except probably in some weird physics, but we won't go there. Now, is there any reason that I can't multiply -5 by 2.205? No, and I did, but it's not logically correct. So that's something we have to work on, but not today. And here it'll say, can't convert Eric as a string to a float. So this is limited to assuming that a legitimate floating point number is entered here. 0, yeah, that's fair. You know, that's fair. Now, in module 2, when they do the text version of this, they have exactly the same problem. When you do this with prints and inputs, the input is going to have exactly the same problem. Okay. How we doing? We've got some time. And of course, there's always more work to do. Okay. All right.
Can you do another example with the same thing? Let's say we use another not pound, we use some other thing.
Well, so here's my suggestion, because I'm lazy. You can look at the other practice exercise, which is converting inches into feet and inches. And you should be able to, you will see a text-based solution to that. And it would be an excellent exercise for you to convert that to a GUI zero solution modeled exactly after this. So it's something you should be able to do with the tools that you have available and the GUI zero tutorial. So I'm going to dump it on you. Sorry, but no, I'm not.
Damn.
I'm going to say yes, and you should be the one to do it. And if not, you know, if you have a problem with it, we can certainly talk about it in class or in a group. Yeah, in class or one-on-one. Because I have a few other things that I want to throw into this. So I'm going to take demo 2 and copy it and create a demo 3 program where we're going to start the idea of create your own module, but we're not going to. Hello. Oh, no. So I've got multiple programs here with the same name, and I've separated them by directory. There we go. You don't want to make these too long, because if you ever print it out, they skip funny. So, you know, we can always continue on another line. Conversion function. This is going to be a short exercise. Let's say, and it's not true, but I need to create a simple example, that this conversion was really complicated and I wanted to split it off into its own function. One of the reasons I might want to do that is maybe I have 20 different programs that do this conversion, and I don't want to write the conversion 20 times. And if I decide I needed more precision than this, I don't want to go back to 20 places and change it. So here's my suggestion. Let's write a function called KG, KG underscore 2 underscore LB. And let me just satisfy the function for a moment. And let me get the spacing in there that it likes. There we go. Notice that this function is external to main. So this function has to deal with the world on its own. And how are we going to do that? Well, if its goal is to convert kilograms to pounds, it needs to know something, doesn't it? It needs to know how many kilograms you want to convert, right? And it needs to return a value. Well, what value is that? It's the value of kilograms times 2.205. And we know that if we don't float this, we're going to get into trouble. And this now becomes hopefully something simpler, not a lot simpler because it's a silly example. I now have a function which, it's surprised it's not telling me. Oh, maybe it is. Hold on. Remove redundant parentheses. Yeah, not yet. I have a function that converts kilograms to pounds. So, and here it is. And it doesn't have to be internal to this function. It can be external. one more time. This is an assignment. The rules of assignment are evaluate the right side of the equal sign. And this says, call the function kilograms to pounds and pass to it the value in the text box. That value becomes kg. We know that that value is text. We know we have to float it, multiply it. And what are we going to do with the result of that? We're going to return that value as a floating point number. It will magically appear here when the program runs, and that floating point number will be plugged into the value in the text box. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to run demo 3. I'm going to put in 10.1, and it'll convert it. Okay. So why am I splitting this into a separate function? Maybe it's a complicated calculation. That's one reason to do it. Maybe I need to do it in 20 different programs. Well, how does that help if I want to do it in 20 different programs and I've coded the function into this program? That doesn't sound like a great idea. So if this idea is going to fly, that means that this function should be defined in its own file, and that file somehow shared. And am I going to run out of time? No, I probably have just about enough time. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep this from getting confusing. I'm going to create within this folder a Python package. And there's not a whole lot of difference between a package and a directory. And I'm going to call it, confused.
That's a perfect name for it.
Yeah. Why don't we call it, let's call it library. Okay. And in that new directory, I'm going to create a copy of this, put it in here, and I'm going to call it demo 4. Okay. So in this library called library, or in this directory or Python package, there's a magic file that appeared that has nothing in it. And I haven't read a straight story about this. It may be obsolete. There may be some more sophisticated things to put in here. It created it, and I'm just going to leave it there. I could erase it and it would work fine. So here's demo 4. And what I want to do is I want to create another Python file here called conversions. Yeah. Conversions. And I've deliberately made that plural. So I'm going to go back to demo 4. All right, I'm going to take back what I was going to say before I say it. I'm going to take this stuff out of here and I'm going to put it here. And PyCharm wants me to do that. Since I called this conversions, I'm kind of thinking that maybe at some point in here, I'll have a whole bunch of different conversions, like pounds to kilograms, centigrade to Fahrenheit, inches to yards, meters to kilometers, whatever. But right now, I just have one of these in here. So I'll go back here to demo 4, and that's this one, right? Right. Let's clean this up. Okay. There's nothing in there. Okay. And let's get the spacing right. And there's a big error in this program. And the error is, I don't know about this function, right? Now, this actually gave me an excellent clue, which I'm not going to take right now because I want to do it manually. How about if we do this? Notice that in this directory is a Python file called conversions from, and let me start typing that and it'll say, hey, how about this? Do you like that? Yeah, I like that. What would you like to import from that library? How about kg, kilograms to pounds? So I could import the function from a library and satisfy this. And if I do that, it'll run just the way it did before. So here's my own library file that could have multiple things in it. I could say import everything, or I could do it the other ways that we did it. But the easiest way to see what we're doing is from conversions, import this. And everything is then satisfied in here. And of course, in here, there's the idea of writing more of these functions and just using the ones that you want. So that's the point that was made in module 2. There's a video in there if you want to see Chuck's version of it, but that's kind of the essence of it. And we're out of time. Let me just see where else this was going.
Got a quick question. What about if you put a pine sign in front of from GUI 0 import star? Is it still gonna run?
No, because it needs APP and text and everything.
All right, thank you.
Now, I mean, you can always do it and you'll see that it'll just give you an error. Now, it was suggesting this before I did that. So I can take this out. I can go over here and I can see a suggestion from PyCharm that says, do that. Now it qualified it. It qualified it with the name of, what's convert? Convert. Oh, that's a different, yeah. That's what I was working on before. So this is the actual name that we want to use. Okay. You got to be careful if you've got multiple things defined in the same project that it's pulling the right one. Notice that the name of the file is conversions.py, but when we do an import, it's just conversions. It loses the py. Okay, that's about as far as we're going to get this. So I feel I've met my obligation for module 2, and I've given you a good head start on GUI 0. What we'll do next time is we will figure out how to take this modest program and split it into 2 windows. Again, it's a simple program, but we can do that. The other thing we're going to talk about further down the road is that this layout is kind of stupid. Everything in this layout is centered and loaded top to bottom, and there's no spacing between the elements. So we need to be able to do better than that. And that's the issue of laying these things out. That's not logic. That's really the mechanics of GUI 0, how to change this layout around. Okay, so
Sorry, my computer went out.
Okay. I had that happen once in a class. I think I probably kicked the box and the plug came loose.